Shalom and welcome. You're listening to Temple Talk. Today is the fourth day of the month of Nisan, the month of our redemption, the month of miracles, 5775. It's March 24th, 2015. Temple Talk, a project of the Temple Institute's International Department, currently broadcasting its 10th year. Yes, that's right. We've done well over 500 installments of Temple Talk. Some of them have been scintillating and great.
Others not.
Some of them have been breathtakingly boring, I suppose. This week, Shabbat HaGadol, this Sabbath, Parshat Tzav, the second Torah portion of the book of Vayikra, Leviticus, and it is called the Great Shabbat, the Shabbat that precedes Passover, and indeed the anticipation towards the incredible festival of Pesach is mounting for Jews all over the world, and of course especially here in the land of Israel, where the festival is observed by going up to the Holy Temple, the pilgrimage. It's one of the three pilgrimage festivals wherein all of Israel comes up to the Holy Temple in Jerusalem, and specifically the Passover offering is not only obligatory upon all of the nation of Israel, but it is synonymous with the very essence and identity of who we are as a people. The concept of bringing the Passover offering, once again, there's really no excuse not to bring it. There are no halachic Jewish legal obstacles or impediments, right, to fulfilling the obligations of bringing the Passover offering. There are solutions to all of the various temporary problems that are manifest. Were it only for the will of the people collectively to do this once again. But there is tremendous awareness and excitement that the people of Israel are awakening to. And while there will be various legal procedures done again this year in terms of approaching the powers that be, whether it's the office of the Prime Minister or the police, for permission to bring the Passover offering, although that might appear to you to be whimsical, tongue-in-cheek, how do we expect them to acquiesce and say yes, given the current geopolitical reality and everything else? Well, you know what? We do circumcision, don't we? And circumcision and the Passover offering are exactly on the same level in many ways from a Torah standpoint. They are both actually in the same category as far as the ramifications of doing them and not doing them. They are both the signs of the people of Israel, and indeed, the best way to define the Passover offering is that it is the circumcision of the nation of Israel on a national level. That's exactly what it is, the covenant. Additionally, once again this year there will be a practice run, as it were, an educational drill of the steps of bringing the Passover offering, that we're hoping will be well attended. That will be taking place next week on the 10th of Nisan, the very same day that the Torah tells us that the people of Israel were commanded to bring a lamb and to prepare it for the Passover offering. And the Temple Institute will be preparing a special educational film this year on the stages of the bringing of the Passover offering for us to share as well. The anticipation is so great because, again, the Passover offering is just absolutely intrinsically bound up with the identity of the nation of Israel. And I think it's very apropos that this week, as we again begin to experience the book of Vayikra, we're reading now Parshat Tzav that details the various korbanot. This is all just a different world to so many people. It's all just so hard to relate to. We discuss this at every opportunity, the concept of our disenfranchisement and need to realign ourselves with these concepts and understand them and try to appreciate what Torah is telling us and what this eternal message is all about. For our mindset, You know, for so many people, Passover is such a beautiful time. It's a family time. It's the time of the Seder and the Haggadah, telling over the story of the Exodus from Egypt and of course, our battle with leaven and removing it from our house and everything else. But the main aspect of what the Passover experience, Pesach, is really all about in the Torah is the bringing of this offering. And we cannot in any way dismiss that or somehow hide from it or pretend that it's not relevant.
A couple of points I'd like to make, Rabbi. First of all, as you mentioned, today it's a home-oriented holiday. We take out our finest silver, our finest plates, finest tablecloth. But of course, in the time of the Holy Temple, the Beit HaMikdash, we leave the house and we head to Jerusalem, where we eat the Korban Pesach and have the Seder in courtyards in Jerusalem, as ostensibly as guests of the local residents of Jerusalem. So it's a totally different experience. Yes, it's very family-oriented, of course, but we are not, ensconced in the comfort of our own home. We're actually in the holy city of Jerusalem for the first night of Passover, at the very least, and also the 14th day of Nisan is Chag Pesach. That's the day of the Korban itself, of making the offering. It itself is a totally unique, holy day in the Hebrew calendar, because it's a day that is holy. It is a Chag, but we can do work on it because we're preparing the Korban Pesach, the Passover offering. That's the day that we bring it up to the Temple Mount, to the Holy Temple, and slaughter the lamb and prepare it to eat that night. And so the Chag HaMatzot, the festival of eating matzah, is a 7-day festival, which we also now refer to as Pesach, as Passover. Of course, they're intrinsically connected, but the 14th, which today is the last minute day of preparing, and we get rid of the chametz in the morning, and we, the kitchen is going full steam all throughout the day getting things ready. But that's actually the day of the Passover offering itself, which in temple time is a totally different experience and an incredibly powerful spiritual experience in and of itself. Even before we
Right.
we get to that night and we're eating at the Seder with the matzot.
I think what you're trying to say, if correct me if I'm wrong, is that today, it's like on that day, the 14th of Nisan, the eve of Passover, the main concern that most of us has is, like, did we really get all the crumbs out of the couch cushions? Don't forget to throw out the vacuum cleaner bag. There's so much to do just to lay the table if you're having a big Seder,
Right.
and prepare the salt water, whatever it is that you're doing. There's so much to do. You might think, like, oh, thank God there's no Passover. How would I go to the old city of Jerusalem and bring an offering now? I have to make my Seder. I have to
Right.
clean my house. I have to make sure that I finish eating chametz by a certain time and brush my teeth or whatever. The fact is, the central theme of the Seder is the eating of the Passover offering that was brought earlier in the day on the 14th. That's what it's really all about. So there is a certain confusion that's mixed in, and I'm not saying that the issue of chametz and purging the leaven from our home is not central to the holiday. It certainly is. The Passover offering is not to be eaten when any leaven is in your possession. We have substituted, in a way, the spiritual power of the festival for an obsession in the other parts of the holiday that are still within our grasp, and we have collectively, subconsciously or consciously, on a national level, kind of just made our peace with the fact that this is what it is now, and therefore this must be what really counts. And so I'd like to offer this thought regarding the confluence of our plunge, once again, our yearly plunge into the book of Vayikra, which is such a harsh reality check for us, and the confluence of the approaching holiday of Passover, which nice as gefilte fish and matzot and horseradish and matzah balls and all that stuff is, really pales in significance without the Passover offering, which is the whole point. and which actually is unconscionable for a people to forego something that God tells us in the same Torah that we cherish and that we declare to be so precious and timeless and binding upon us. Well, this is just something, well, we're not into that at this point. Well, how could you say that? Because here again, this is an example of something that we have no official legal excuse not to be doing. So here's what I want to offer. It's a teaching that is my favorite, I think, one of my favorites, certainly from Parshat Tzav, that we have mentioned in past years. And that is this idea that this Torah portion, beginning in Leviticus chapter 6, begins with the law of the burnt offering and a particular aspect of it which is called Trumat HaDeshen. Trumat HaDeshen, the raising up of the ashes, right? Truma, the same word that we had in Parshat Truma, to raise up, is a special commandment that applies every single day in the Holy Temple. And as we read here in the beginning of Parshat Tzav, in chapter 6 of Leviticus, Hashem spoke to Moshe saying, "Command Aaron and his son, saying, this is the law of the burnt offering. It is the burnt offering that stays on the flame on the altar all night until the morning, and the fire of the altar should be kept aflame on it." And then what happens is that there is a special commandment that every single day, the first thing that the Kohen does to begin the sacred duties of the day, and it's at dawn, right, is that he gathers up a certain amount of the ashes that are left over on the altar from the previous day's offerings, and he actually removes them from the altar. He separates the ash, and he places it in a special designated area near the altar, and there these ashes are actually absorbed into the ground near the altar. And when there's a large amount of ashes that accumulate on the altar, those are removed and taken outside of the camp and buried. So there's this whole idea about the upkeep of the altar, that there's a certain amount of ashes from the previous day's offerings that collected in the center of the altar, and they're removed. What is that all about? And again, there's so many levels of meaning and interpretation of every commandment, and the very fact that Hashem commanded it is enough for me, right? And I don't know, this is what God told us, and this is the ordinance. But we are certainly commanded and allowed to interpret and understand what it is that Hashem is telling us. And one of the most profound interpretations of this commandment is the idea that you have to completely, a person has to completely separate from yesterday, from what yesterday was all about, and not be attached to what it is, or what we thought it was, but to be able to separate from it. And so the Kohen approaches these ashes and he lifts them up. And this is the whole beautiful idea about Terumah, is always an elevation. So he lifts up a little bit of yesterday's ashes, right? But then he buries it. He's gonez it, geniza. He hides it in a place which is near the holy, right? It's near the altar. But then you have to go on from there. And yesterday's ashes, in my opinion, and in this approach which I studied, it's very important idea from one of our great sages. The idea is, you can't be obsessed or stuck where you were yesterday. It's very similar to the idea that every day also, the other thing that the serving priests do every day in the Holy Temple before anything else is they have to cleanse their hands and feet from the waters of the laver. And that's called sanctification of the hands and feet. They wash their hands and feet every day before doing any of their duties. And that also has a certain powerful meaning on a deeper level, which is that they are basically moving ahead from whatever notion they had of yesterday, of their conception of God, of anything. It's washing and going further and not being held back, and kind of like elevating yourself from yesterday's conceptions. And so the reason I bring this up is because I think when it comes to many, many things, we are very, very stuck on prejudices, preconceived notions that we have about yesterday, and we don't go further because of that. And so what I'm saying is, what the Kohen is called upon here to do is to is to face whatever it was that he thought yesterday was, and then place it in a place of honor, but to go on completely. So we're very, very stuck, not on the offerings of yesteryear, right? I wish we were appreciative of the offerings of yesterday. What we're stuck on is our idea of what this is all about. We have this thing that we've convinced ourselves that this is totally not talking to us. And here the Torah is telling us, every day has to be new. Every day, like, take what you thought yesterday was and go on from it and start over again. Here, for all these thousands of years, the Torah is beckoning to us, crying out to us that our destiny, our goal, our purpose in life is to separate ourselves from idolatry and to prove to the world that idolatry will not be given any free rein. We take the lamb, which was worshipped by the Egyptians, and in front of them we slaughter it. And I had opportunity recently to teach this to a group, the idea, reminding us again about how the children of Israel were commanded to take the Passover lamb into the home 4 days before the 14th of Nisan on the 10th. And they tied it to the bedpost. And in the Holy Temple, there's an idea that there's a special chamber where the checked lambs are kept so that they're blemish-free, and that they're already designated beforehand. Why were they told, while yet in Egypt, back in Exodus 12, in Parshat Bo, why were they told to designate the lamb beforehand and take it into the house? Well, the Egyptians saw them doing this. And they said, "What are you doing?" And they told them to their face, "We're going to slaughter this." And you know what? They were like dumbfounded, the Egyptians. They stood there motionless with their mouth open. They couldn't even respond. All the people today who say, how could you talk about building the Holy Temple, or even bringing an offering, or even moving your lips on the Temple Mount and praying like Jews? That's going to cause a third world war. Well, guess what? The Torah is testifying that in Egypt we did this incredible thing. We brought the lamb into the house. They're all sitting there. What are you guys going to do? Oh, we're going to slaughter your God. And they say, hum, 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 hum. Okay. They did nothing. That's what the Passover offering teaches us. The Passover offering is about shattering the world's conceptions. It's about slaughtering the idolatry of the world before their very eyes. They won't stop us. They will thank us. That's what we're supposed to be doing in this world. As it was then, it is now. And the other thing that I think is very cool is why the sages tell us that that lamb was tied to the bedpost. And that is because, if you don't want to do something, if something makes you uncomfortable because it's beyond your comfort zone and it makes you like, I'd like to procrastinate and not face up who I am and not do this, what do you do? What is the metaphor? What is the the common thing? People say, well, I think I'll just stay in bed today. I'll hide under the covers. I don't want to face reality. And here they were told to take it and tie it to the bedpost so that I take my head from under the covers and I look, and there she is looking at me in the eyes. Bah, don't forget who you are. And that Hashem is saying, there is no escape from me. There is no shirking responsibility. There is no rehearsal. This is it. This is your job. This is who you are. Do it. The place that I thought I would escape to, where maybe Hashem won't be able to reach me, like Jonah, like fleeing from Nineveh. No. Here it is, right in your face, in your comfort zone. Do it. Do it. That's what Hashem is calling out to the Jewish people. As it was then, it is today. Passover is eternal. That's what it's really all about. It's about facing up to who we really are. And that's the reality of the situation. And it didn't cause the world war then. Instead, we left Egypt. And so today, too, this is what we have to do. And otherwise, what are we? We're just buying kosher Pesach food. It's all wonderful. You got your macaroons, gefilte fish, whatever. But something's very, very wrong with the picture.
I just wanted to add one detail in the Trumat Adeshin that you didn't emphasize, Rabbi, and that is the actual lifting up. Yes, we take yesterday's conceptions and understandings of who we are and our relationship with God, and we remove them because it's a new day. But we also, before we remove them, we actually raise them up. So it's not that we're dishonoring, who we were yesterday or the service for Hashem that we did yesterday. We're honoring it by raising it up, but then we have to move on with it. It's a new day, and just as God recreates creation each and every day, we need to be part of that recreation. And as far as the Korban Pesach, as far as the doing it in spite of and without fear that it's going to cause World War III, and it won't, because we see in the Torah proof that it won't. Rabbi, I think there couldn't be a more propitious, appropriate, better time for Korban Pesach than this year when Israel just seems to feel like King Kong on the Empire State Building. We're like, they're coming from every direction after us right now, just trying to cause us to fall. And I think the best thing to clear the air and to maybe relax the White House would be a Korban Pesach, because that would be saying to everyone, we believe in God, and you guys are yesterday's ashes.
I gotta warn you that the State Department might not approve.
They might not believe I'm being sincere here.
This Shabbat is called Shabbat HaGadol, the Great Sabbath, and it is named for words, an expression from the Haftarah, from the prophetic reading that we read on this special Shabbat, the last Shabbat before Passover. And that Haftarah is found in the third and final chapter of the book of Malachi, which is the prophet that concludes the prophets of the Tanakh. And there we read about the spiritual dimension of our relationship with Hashem, and the Haftarah ends with the words, "Behold, I am sending you Elijah the prophet before the coming of the great and awesome day of Hashem." And this is the expression Hagadol, the great day, so it's Shabbat Hagadol, and he will turn back to God the hearts of the fathers with their sons and the hearts of the sons with their fathers. And interestingly, the Haftarah begins with verse 4 of chapter 3, which is, "Then the offering of Judah and Jerusalem will be pleasing to Hashem as in the days of old and in previous years." But actually the first verse of the chapter, which is not part of the Haftarah, because the Haftarah begins with verse 4, the first verse of the chapter is, "Behold, I am sending my messenger, and he will clear a path before me. Suddenly the master whom you seek will come to his sanctuary." And this, in fact, is a verse referring to the fact that, for those of you who think that Mashiach has to build the Holy Temple, here you have a verse saying that the Holy Temple is going to be standing, because suddenly the master whom you seek will come to his sanctuary. So you have to build it, and then he will come, which is what we've always said. If you build it, he will come. So stay with us. This is Temple Talk. We'll be right back.
Shalom and welcome back to Temple Talk. This is the 4th day of the month of Nisan, 5775, 24th day of March, 2015. This is Yitzchak Reuven, and with me Rabbi Richman. Temple Talk, a project of the Temple Institutes. We're talking about the Korban Pesach, the Passover offering. You mentioned before, Rabbi, the first Passover offering in Egypt, how we just did it, in the faces. Of the most powerful nation on earth at the time, and we just did it. And the people who didn't do it were the ones, cringing in the corner, saying, "Ooh, you're going to draw the ire of the most powerful people on earth."
The liberal Jews, you mean?
And they're just going to be so angry at us.
J Street was probably very upset.
J Street for sure was fit to be tied.
There probably were some Jews that voted for the ruling party.
And you know what? I think we kind of did it a week ago. In fact, what's today? Today's Tuesday. It was exactly 1 week ago, right?
Was it so long ago?
One week ago, we had elections here in Israel, and the election, almost was as powerful as a Korban Pesach.
In a way, it was, and somehow. It had the same had a similar effect, because it was kind of like a statement of faith and courage for whatever it's worth, I mean, it really was. And a lot of people were upset, but no one more than the one who heads up the American administration seemed to be very upset because he was personally invested in unseating and toppling Benjamin Netanyahu. He had, I mean, there's a headline today on the Times of Israel, which is not a big fan of Netanyahu, that talks about how officials are admitting that the White House was involved in a plot to try and unseat Netanyahu. They had
try to subvert the democratic system of the state of Israel.
In Israel. Instead, the people of Israel went for what I may call the audacity of hope. And they said, yes, we can have our own lives and make a statement as to what direction we want to go in.
And what we see from here is not what you see from there.
And here's the thing, is that now what it seems to us, honestly, as we read Parshat Tzav, that begins with the distinction between night and day, as we expounded upon in the Torah lesson this week, and that begins with yesterday's conceptions. And as we struggle for the restoration of the preeminence of our covenant with Hashem and our ability to do what is incumbent upon us to do, like bring the Passover offering, we're facing a reality today wherein it seems that the POTUS is so upset, enraged, literally enraged over the fact that he did not get his way and he did not successfully unseat the person that he hates so much. Actually, he hates all Jews, and he hates Israel. So I guess Netanyahu is just some sort of a microcosm for him. But now what's happened is that because he didn't succeed in interfering in the democratic process of a sovereign state, the gloves are off, the mask is off more than ever before, and the very next day he had to announce that everything has to be reevaluated now as far as our relationship is concerned, and no longer necessarily will Israel be protected by the United States at the United Nations War Crimes Commission, human rights violations, whatever it is. And furthermore, every day it changes. I mean, today, for example, there's a banner headline which is that there's some sort of report that Israel is spying on American talks with Iran. So now I understand we're spies. We're spies. We're everything under the sun, because
isn't that what that we're spies? Isn't that the claim that we're always hearing from states like Iran and Egypt and Saudi Arabia? States that are declared enemies are always accusing Israel of spying on them and having all these plots to try to, subvert their
Everything is right on schedule. It's kind of reminiscent of the beginning of the book of Exodus, where Paro says to his advisors, "They're too numerous for us now. What are we going to do? Maybe they're going to rise up against us. Maybe." And I'm expecting that to happen too. But the degree of and the ridiculousness and the over-the-top, absolutely inexcusable, infantile, narcissistic is not even a sufficient word anymore, self-centered and enraged and pathological hatred that this man is demonstrating towards Netanyahu is beyond all control at this point. So, anything can happen.
All bets are off. And basically, the President of the United States is really unleashing and giving a green light to all the forces of evil on the earth, to all the virulent anti-Semites and anti-Zionists, whatever they want to call themselves, anti-God of Israel forces who have been waiting for this day so that they can just, without any inhibition, go for the jugular of Israel. And
because he's making it so clear that it's basically open season, yes, because he's so displeased with Netanyahu, and he doesn't have the same rancor, he doesn't reserve the same rhetoric or hyperbole or anything for the leader of Iran, who, by the way, the State Department sent a very warm, in fact, gushing condolence message to the leader of Iran who lost his mother it was just very, very warm. I mean, this state that's been branded by the United States of America until recently to be the mother of all terror-sponsoring states, right? He doesn't use the same language or show the same kind of displeasure with any of the despotic Middle East leaders or any of the people that are in direct confrontation with American values or plans or anything like that. It's only Netanyahu who is at the top of the only democracy in the Middle East and America's purported ally, etc., upon whom he releases this tremendous vitriolic stuff. So
the United States, basically, I mean, Obama's, it seems like his closest compatriot in the Middle East is Erdogan, who's the virulently anti-Semitic, tyrannical Islamist, democracy-crushing leader of Turkey. And of course, America's cozied up to Iran.
And Saudi Arabia, where people are routinely beheaded.
And Qatar, who's the prime funder, supporter of Hamas, of ISIS, of Islamic Brotherhood, etc., etc. Basically, the United States has become the number one backer of terrorism, Islamic terrorism. Basically, the United States has become...
Wait, did you just say that the United States has actually become the number one backer of terrorism? Do you want to qualify that remark? Because we might get ourselves into trouble here, and we have no 5-second delay here. Did you just say that, Yitzchak?
Yeah, I just said that.
Explain what you mean.
I'm explaining that. The same day that the United States, that the president refused to meet Netanyahu, when Netanyahu made his speech at Congress, the United States president met with and very warmly welcomed the head of Qatar. Qatar is the supporter of ISIS, of Hamas, of the Muslim Brotherhood. Qatar has been in deep trouble with its own Arab neighboring states because of all the turmoil it has been stirring up throughout the region. United States, as we see, is basically become the ally of Iran, and they're fighting together ISIS.
But as
and the United States even has called for, to basically revitalize the legitimacy and presidency of Assad of Syria, who now has become a very important
one of
part
the most
their
beautiful, succinct messages that Netanyahu delivered at the day he spoke before the Congress was, he said, the only difference here is a name. There's the Islamic State, and then there's Iran, which calls itself the Islamic Republic. And their goal is the same. Both of them are the same. And the fact is that for so long now, from day one, actually, I mean, don't forget that Obama's first official phone call that he made when he became president the first time was to call Abbas. Here, he did not, he took his time in congratulating Netanyahu for his victory, and
this wasn't a congratulation.
And even then, when he called, right, it was a lecture and a request for clarification. And he's never made it. There's never been any doubt about his tremendous personal animosity for Netanyahu. All the stories that you've read about how he was deliberately photographed with an official White House, press bureau of him having a conversation on the telephone with Netanyahu, showing the bottom of his shoes, with his feet up on the desk, showing contempt, about how Netanyahu was ushered in a side door when he came to the White House, about he wasn't given any time, and of course, most recently about the whole brouhaha about him speaking before Congress and not being attended by, neither by the State Department nor by the President, and the President saying he didn't have time to listen, but he did read the transcript and there was nothing new there whatsoever. And listen, we're very proud of Netanyahu, and as we've spoken about many times, he's not our first choice. Our first choice at this point isn't on the menu, and we're holding out, yes, for a man of faith. But the fact is, you know what? My attitude now is we have to pray for Netanyahu very, very strong, because he recognized that this was a miracle. He was up against such an incredible onslaught of personal attack, and he always is. Every minute, he and his wife and everything, all the time in office, because the media here it's fixed, and so both from within the state of Israel, he's constantly being pulled apart, and from without, these energies are focused on degrading him all the time, and he has to stand up to that, and he's doing a very, very good job. And the media here also, which is leftist-oriented and controlled, and wants basically to disassemble the state of Israel, and has a very big issue with any traditional Jewish values, which somehow Netanyahu represents at least more than other people that were running. They have a problem with him, and so he's up against this tremendous onslaught all the time. So you know what? I'm not complaining. I'm just saying let's keep him in our prayers, because he did and he made some beautiful statements, and he went to the Kotel after the victory, not before, and I think that's a very powerful statement. And he did recognize that it was a miracle, and I want him not to forget. I want him not to forget, and I want him to keep his relationship with Hashem growing stronger and stronger, because we need him to be strong and to be connected and focused with faith in the God of Israel as he stands at the helm. And so yes, I am very, very proud of him that he stood up for these things, and time will tell. And yes, am I happy with him in general? No. I have, as we've made clear, so many issues, that so many things that bother us, we don't have to even enumerate, because we talk about this all the time, and all the issues concerning the infringements of our rights at the Temple Mount, it all stems from him and his inability to recognize his priorities as far as what will bring about the redemption for Israel. But the fact is, it's a start, and it's a lot better than the opposition. And he is, I think, working on these things. But what I wanted to say is this. When he went to Congress and he referenced immediately the story of Esther, and he referenced Moshe, at the Congress, and he said some very powerful things. And at the end of the speech, he said, in a very respectful and pretty clearly veiled way, he said, we're not going to endanger ourselves. And if we have to fight Iran, or anybody, but Iran specifically, we'll do it alone. We will fight without you. But, of course, we know that will never happen, because you're always standing at our side. He knew how to stick that in. But he made it clear. He said, if we have to fight, we will do it ourselves. And if it wasn't enough animosity beforehand, now, basically, everything that's going on is all Obama's revenge. All Obama's revenge. And, I mean, the pundits, they're all being quite clear in their pronouncements in the press. Every new move that's made, and every new, proclamation that Obama makes, here, at least on some of the news outlets, it says, Obama's revenge, this and that. This is what he's doing now. This is what is left to Obama to do. What other thing does he have to occupy his time besides spending $15 million on vacations?
I'm just going to focus now, Rabbi. You mentioned the Temple Mount. And this is very important, I think, that we share this information. The situation in the Temple Mount has become, in recent weeks, much graver and more serious than it has been for quite some time. And if you keep up with our reports, then you know that it's always been difficult. There's been ups and downs. And yes, more and more Jews are going each day to the Temple Mount. That hasn't changed. Those numbers are growing despite the mounting obstacles. But the treatment that Jews receive on the Temple Mount has gone from bad to worse. It's really despicable. There are the harassment at the hands of Muslim men and women who surround every group of Jews, what's that insect?
What?
Insects. They swarm.
Hornets?
I say hornets. And the police are obviously given direct orders to not interfere with that, to not keep even a distance between the Jews and the Muslims who are trying at their top of their lungs and with all their might to make life miserable and torturous for the Jews on the Mount. The police refuse to take any steps, and when requested by the Jews, they arrest the Jews. It's just become a horrible, horrible situation. And again, we know that the direct orders do come from the Prime Minister's office, where I'm hopeful that perhaps this upcoming Knesset, the government, when it's formed, will address these issues. Some of the most stalwart members of the Knesset who brought these issues up in the past, such as Moshe Feiglin, are not there this year, are not there in this Knesset. So we don't know yet, but we hope that these issues will be addressed, because the situation has just become horrible.
So we have on the one hand the Netanyahu who rises up like a Mordechai before Congress and makes this tremendous sanctification of Hashem by basically saying, like, I don't really care what you say, I'm going to do what we have to do for our people. And then he suffers the consequences, and the whole world is trying to bring him down, and he's riding out the storm. And at the same time, it's the same Netanyahu who, when it comes to the Temple Mount,
He's Obama.
and the what?
When he comes to the Temple Mount, he's Obama.
Well, let's not say such a horrible thing. I wouldn't call anybody that. But when it comes to the Temple Mount, he is involved in this strange relationship with Jordan and the hierarchy, which is so murky. The fact that the High Court of the fact that a court gave out this verdict, which was considered by some a couple of weeks ago to be so revolutionary. Everybody was so excited about the verdict that the judge gave in a certain case, saying absolutely Jews have to be able to pray on the Temple Mount, and how the very, very next day when we went to the Temple Mount, the policeman told us this, as far as I'm concerned, as far as we're concerned, this verdict doesn't even exist. And since then, things have gotten even more difficult. And now, basically, every group is like accompanied by like an 8-year-old Muslim girl who screams at the top of her lungs.
And of course, it's above the law because no one will touch her.
What are you going to do? You know,
girl.
And in fact, Rabbi Ariel was just mentioning to me that he was there the other day, and finally he turned to the policeman and he said, "I can't even talk. She's screaming." And the could you remove her? And the policeman said, "No, this is the procedure. This is the know-how, right? Yeah. This is the way it is." No. It's like now there's like a new rule that every Jewish group has to be accompanied by a little Muslim girl who's going to be screaming at you because how could we possibly exert force to remove a cute little girl?
So
and as you wrote, Yitzchak, a number of weeks ago in an article, this is a new weapon that's being used by the Waqf. It's children that are very cynically being used to up the ante and to try to exert this kind of psychological torture on the Jewish worshippers.
But the very, very, very positive news is that the number of Jews who go up each day, at least try to get up to the Temple Mount, continues to increase. You know, there's the regulars that have been doing it for years, but it seems like every day there's somebody new. There's new organizations, new groups that are interested in this. It has really become very widespread, very mainstream, and you know, it's really a matter of time, because when you have the numbers, especially in a system such as, you know, a democratic system such as it is here in Israel, when you have the numbers, you have a voice. And that really is the way to make the change. And our numbers are increasing all the time. And it's more and more people are just identifying it, you know, with the Temple Mount, Rabbi, with the place of the Holy Temple. It's not even that, you know, it's almost unspoken. But more and more people are just saying, yeah, like that's where I want to be there. I want to go up. We ourselves, you know, receive requests all the time. But it's just really taken off like never before. And when push comes to shove, I think the push of the people will be much more powerful. And whether it's part of, you know, the written agreements that will be written into the coalition agreements, I think that the issue will come up, and I'm hopeful that we may see some real positive change over the next few years.
I know that we will, because we've already seen so much positive change, and it is a momentum that can't be stopped, and it is so completely on a higher level than it's ever been before. And so, yes, we're frustrated. Yes, we always report about what we perceive as setbacks and these frustrating obstacles, but there is something that's going on so powerfully, and I think that's the same element that's responsible for the tremendous election victory. There is a certain healthy kind of should we call it a silent majority? There is a healthy level of this people that knows what's what, and that won't be fooled, and that won't be manipulated.
Before we close today, Rabbi, we have to mention that tomorrow, the 25th of March, the 5th day of Nisan, is this year's designated the 6th Annual International Temple Mount Awareness Day broadcast. And it's going to be a little bit different this year, as we've mentioned in previous shows. This year, the Rabbi and I are answering the questions of you, our listeners, our viewers, our supporters, fans of the Temple Institute, fans of the Holy Temple, who have, over the past few weeks, been sending in your questions, beautiful questions we've received about all different subjects concerning the Holy Temple, the Temple Mount, the present and the future, and even the past. And this year's International Temple Mount Awareness Day is going to be broken up into multi-part video, each one concentrating on a single or a few questions. That these videos will be posted on our Facebook page, on our YouTube channel, on our websites, and via our Facebook page, the Rabbi and I will be available throughout the day tomorrow to dialogue with people and to answer questions. And we're really hoping for a great day and a great response, and hopefully a great teaching and learning for all of us. So tomorrow, the 25th of March, this year's 6th Annual International Temple Mount Awareness Day broadcast. Please be with us. Share the experience with us. Thanks for being with us today. Temple Talk.